Okay, let me continue here. Throughout Dr. VanGarsse's career, she's also served in a variety of roles for safety net clinics who serve underserved populations. And through her work, she strives to integrate medical student education into the care of the underserved, with the goal of instilling a passion for the care of underserved populations in future physicians. Dr. VanGarsse additionally serves as a member of the American Medical Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and is a diplomat of the American Board of Pediatrics, for which she served as a member of the standard setting panel in 2017. She's also on the board of directors for the American Association for Physician Leadership, as well as other academic and pediatric organizations. So welcome, Dr. VanGarsse. We're so pleased to have you with us, and I will pass it off to you.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here with you guys today. This is an exciting opportunity. I'm thrilled that this conference was able to take place virtually with COVID happening. It's really great that we can still do some things to help future physicians be able to learn and really delve into medicine as a career. So I'm thrilled this was able to take place virtually. So as mentioned, my name is Dr. Ann VanGarsse, and thank you for that very kind introduction. I am a pediatrician by training, as mentioned, and before I came into academia, I was in private practice for about 11 years, and then I came into academic medicine about 7 years ago. And I'm a little bit unique in that I have spent the entirety of my academic medical career in osteopathic medicine, though I am not an osteopathic physician by training, I'm an MD. We'll kind of discuss a little bit about that in a few moments. So let's go ahead and get started about how to write an amazing personal statement for medical school. So a little bit about me, we kind of already went into that. A little bit about you guys. I can't really see all of the participants, but maybe if the facilitators could let me know about how many folks are first year, second year, third year, and fourth year college students, kind of a little bit of a spread of the demographic of the participants today. So I kind of have a little bit of a sense of what year in college or before college folks are in currently.
Sure, let's go ahead and have everyone type into the chat where you are right now in your career path. So you can write, you know, college, freshman, or high school senior. Can you see the chat log there, Dr. VanGarsse?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll read it to you. We've got lots in college, seniors, second year college. We've got some juniors and seniors in high school. Looks like a majority of our students are in undergrad, right around their sophomore, junior, senior year.
Excellent. Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you so much for doing that. Okay.
Welcome.
So a little bit of background. So a lot of people maybe aren't familiar that practicing physicians, so no matter what specialty you're in, whether you're a family medicine physician or a surgeon or an obstetric gynecology physician or a pediatrician like myself, or any type of physician that practices medicine, there are 2 degrees that can get you or you can be a DO, which is a doctor of osteopathy. So there are essentially 2 different types of medicine that are practiced in the United States, and physicians with both of those different degree types are perfectly able to be licensed in any of the 50 states and serve in any specialty of medicine that exists. So there are 2 paths to become a physician. So I kind of wanted to point that out because not everyone is necessarily familiar. The main difference between the 2 main degree types between myself as an MD and my colleagues that I work with as a DO is that the DOs learn everything that I learned in medical school, with the addition of they also learn some hands-on manipulation. The manipulations are a little bit similar to chiropractic, though they're slightly more gentle and a little bit less forceful. So that's sort of the main difference. So I kind of wanted to sort of set that as a baseline a little bit. Subsequently, since there are 2 main types of medical colleges, there are MD medical colleges and there are DO medical colleges, there are therefore 2 different application services. There are national application services through which students apply to be able to get into medical school. And so we're going to get into that a little bit next, because that will then play into the personal statement piece. So the MD granting institutions have an application service called AMCAS, the American Medical College Application Service, which if some of you are seniors in college, you may already be in this admissions process, because the application cycle for both application services opens in May. So we are in our medical school, we are right smack in the middle of our second application cycle. We currently matriculated our first class of students in August. And so we are currently in the middle of recruiting our second class. So that application service is for the MD side. And then the Osteopathic Medical College application service is called AACOMAS. It's the American Association of Colleges of Osteopathic Medicine application service. So there are two application services. They run concurrently. The application deadlines are very, very similar, and they have very similar requirements. So we'll get into that in a moment as well. Okay, so the personal statement. Both of the application services very much have guidance given on this. And this is actually pulled directly from the AMCAS application service website. So a very important thing with the personal statement, and especially this year, this application cycle, and we don't know how many other application cycles, very honestly, is to really distinguish yourself via your personal statement. We know in this particular current application cycle that many students are applying without their MCAT score being back. And so schools like my own and like other medical schools are having to make decisions on offering interviews to students before they actually see their MCAT score come back, just because of the unavailability of the MCAT test for many, many months due to COVID. So since we don't know how long that's going to continue to be, we're just going to consider that the application has an even enhanced importance to the personal statement for this season and possibly other application seasons moving forward. So therefore, it's really important to distinguish yourself. What makes you different? What sets you apart from the other applicants? All medical schools get thousands and thousands of applications for their limited number of seats. Our new medical school last year, a brand new first-year osteopathic medical school in its first year of operation, we got over 4,000 applications for our 75 spots. So, and we certainly aren't unique. So what sets you apart from the other applicants that we have? And very honestly and very distinctly and very true to yourself, okay? An important piece to put in there is why medicine? Why not any of the other fields where you can help people? What is it specifically about being a physician that really helps feed your soul and helps you to be what you want to be out of life? Why specifically do you want to be a physician? A corollary to that is, what motivates you to learn more about medicine, to consider medicine as a career moving forward? What do you want us to know as schools that has not perhaps been disclosed in other parts of your application sections? Certainly, the schools will see your GPA, they'll see your transcript in terms of what you have completed thus far at the time that you apply. They'll, in most years, see your MCAT score, as I mentioned, probably not this year. They'll see a lot of your extracurriculars. They'll see things in your letters of recommendation. But what else is there that maybe they won't see, that they won't see in your paper file, so to speak? What else sets you apart and makes you unique? That could include things like, what difficulties or hardships have you faced in your career path toward medicine? We all have had things that have shaped us, informed us, but what about your educational path has been an obstacle or been a challenge? And then the more important piece of that is, how have you overcome that? What have you done to surpass that challenge, and what did you learn from it? And how did perhaps that experience serve to further enhance your interest in medicine and solidify that this is indeed the career choice for you? If you do happen to experience as a student any significant fluctuations in your academic record, maybe you've had some specific challenges for grades or whatever, or maybe you had a gap or something that could be perceived as a weakness to your application packet, delve into that. Tell us about that in your personal statement, but very much focusing on what you learned from that and how that perhaps enhanced your decision to pursue medicine. So don't shy away from those challenges, delve into them and share them with us so that we can know that as we're reviewing your application. AACOMAS has very similar guidance as AMCAS does. Again, they also stress, keep your topic fairly general and not very rat hole specific. It's critically important for both application services to not exceed the maximum length that is required, and very much use your own words, and then use simple formatting for reasons that we'll get into a little bit down the road, which is purely about the logistics of how the actual application services work in terms of uploading your personal statement. Okay, so as I mentioned, AMCAS and AACOMAS have very similar, the same requirements for the personal statement. So both of them have a maximum of 5,300 characters, and that includes spaces. This is a little bit different, whereas before AACOMAS had a 4,500 character maximum. Now for ease and consistency for the students, the spaces, the length is now the same, which is 5,300 characters. External formatting that has happened in whatever word processing application you use to write it, that will not be saved when your personal statement is then saved over into the application service. So just be aware of that you will have to reformat it once you have it in the application service itself. It's very important to note the application does not have a spell check function, so don't rely on that. Make sure you have it spell checked, ready to go, and the way you want it to be with everything except the formatting before you put it into the application. And then once it is submitted, there isn't the ability to make any changes. So that's very important to keep into account as well. Okay. As I mentioned, it's very helpful. It's most helpful to type directly into the online application, or you could cut and paste text only as long as you did your personal statement in a word processing program that has very plain formatting, then copy and paste it into the online application and then do your formatting. Be very clear, as I mentioned before, you must proofread your statement before you submit it because there is not the ability to make any changes afterwards. That's critical, and students don't always necessarily realize that. Okay, so how do you then in your personal statement, let's revisit that I talked about before, about standing out from the crowd. How exactly do you accomplish that? How exactly do you set yourself apart from the thousands of other applicants that are applying for those same seats? I want you guys to start early. For those that are already in the application cycle, for you guys that are seniors, it certainly isn't too late if you haven't submitted your application yet to really kind of fine tune your personal statement. For those that haven't perhaps started it yet, I want you to start now, whether you're in high school, whether you're a freshman or a sophomore in college, whatever you're doing, start now, get a single journal, and that needs to be your personal statement journal. And as you have experiences, as you shadow a physician, as you have a personal experience with a family member or a friend or anything like that that relates to medicine, specifically as it churns your interest in it, as it makes you learn more about yourself, as you have challenges, as you have life events happen, keep track of all of that in this one single journal that is for your personal statement, and record those just a few sentences about that at the time, because that gives you additional flavor to your personal statement later. It's really hard when you're going back and trying to remember what was going through your thoughts at the time to really add that richness to a personal statement. We forget. It's really hard to remember what you were thinking at the time that your grandmother went into the hospital with cancer and how that felt to be on the receiving end of that, or if you had a challenge with biochemistry that went poorly and kind of how you felt, and then what you did to problem solve your way into that, and then how you ultimately succeeded. That journey, sometimes we forget the fine details of that journey and how we felt and how we responded, but it's exactly those pieces. It's how we felt, how we problem solved, how we eventually succeeded. And that journey is exactly what adds the richness to your personal statement that we're looking for when we read them. Okay. That includes specific concrete examples of why a physician career is for you. So as you're shadowing in an office with a physician and you encounter a specific patient that really has, you see the physician have a meaningful interaction with that patient, and that impacts you. You'll forget the details if you didn't record it at the time. So I really want you to start making a habit out of recording everything that's happening as you're going through your journey. It doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be a labor-intensive thing. It doesn't need to be one more thing to do. But a few minutes as you have these experiences will definitely benefit you later when you're sitting down to say, okay, now I'm going to sit down and write my personal statement. Where do I start? It's just a little bit almost overwhelming. This will help you as you flavor that moving forward. And again, I mentioned any challenges or obstacles. A lot of times students try and minimize those or avoid those, or not really want to talk about some of their challenges and obstacles, but because they think that we in the admissions process of a medical school are looking for the perfect candidate, that they have to sort of give us this ideal vision of who you are. Actually, we get a lot of that. We're looking for what makes you have grit, what makes you unique. So we actually want to hear about the challenges and the obstacles, and specifically how you problem solved your way out of it and how you got through it. So that's critically important to us. And it makes your personal statement be different, very honestly. So into the actual nitty-gritty of the personal statement. So it's very, very important. Make sure you do have a central theme. If there was a particular instance or experience that really, really strongly flavored and strongly enhanced your desire to be a physician, carry that throughout. Grab our attention early. Give us a story. Give us a story that we can tell was very impactful to you. Feel free to specifically address why medicine. If you're applying for osteopathic medicine, why specifically osteopathic medicine? What is it about the hands-on techniques that you're interested in? What is it about osteopathic medicine that sets you apart, and why are you choosing that as opposed to MD medicine? I bolded it here because I cannot stress enough the story about your personal growth journey that indicates reflection. That ability to grow and reflect is one of the hallmark skills of being a physician. We as physicians have to be lifelong learners. We have to constantly look for our own weaknesses and then strive to shore them up through additional learning. So demonstrating that you have that skill already, even if it's in the beginning stages of doing self-reflection and personal growth and how that has led you to medicine, that journey is really key and critical for us. As part of those stories, that's to show us rather than just tell us. Tell us the story, but showing with specific examples of this happened and this is how I reacted, and this demonstrates that I have resilience or that I have leadership or whatever. So illustrate whatever you're talking about yourself, illustrate it with stories. Additionally, this is the time to really let yourself shine. A lot of us that are drawn to the helping careers, are drawn to medicine. We frequently are taught to, not be boastful or not appear to be arrogant or don't, it's rude to really compliment yourself. This isn't being arrogant. This is the time to really compliment yourself. Give us your best qualities, toot your own horn, really tell us, why are you amazing? And why do you think you're going to be an amazing physician? Don't be humble in your personal statement. Don't come across as being arrogant, but it's totally fine to tell us why you shine and to tell us what you have learned about yourself that really sets you apart. This is really the time to showcase all of that for us. So one suggestion, just as you're kind of trying to think through how to format this and how to structure it. 3 big components, think in threes. So divide your personal statement into 3 main sections. One is tell stories about something unique about you, be it a significant achievement, be it a passion and interest that you have or a hobby you have that's really unique. How does that make you, again, sort of different and unique? It can be a challenging or deeply moving experience. So a bit about you, a bit about why medicine. So how does the thing that you wrote about you, how does that then set you up to be a great candidate for medicine? Tell us a little bit about your journey. How did you first become interested? What sustained that interest? What sustained that ambition? And then it's very important, tell us, why are you ready to apply now? This year, why has your journey culminated in the point where now you are ready? You are at the point where you feel that you really are as ready as you're ever going to be to apply to medicine. That's important as well. Your interest in specifically medicine or osteopathic medicine in terms of the other helping fields. Frequently we're encountering students that perhaps are having a challenge, and I may ask them the question, so why do you want to be a doctor? And they almost universally tell me. Definitely aware there's a multitude of different ways how we can help people. You can be a teacher, you can be a nurse, you can be a firefighter, you can be a physician. There's a bunch of different ways that you can help people. What is it specifically about medicine that is the way you want to help people? And why does that feel most fulfilling to you? And the reason that's important to convey, not just to us in your personal statement, but it's really also important for you to start to identify that, because that why, your why, in terms of why you want to be a physician, that's going to be the piece that really kind of helps to motivate you when it gets tough, when the studying is hard, when the Krebs cycle is really frustrating, when, you're up late studying for a test. Remembering that why and having done the work about, here's why I want to be a doctor, here's why I want to go into this field, and having it just be a part of the fire of your soul, that's going to help keep you going when challenges come up, when roadblocks come up, when the going gets tough. It's great to start to identify that now and then convey that to us in your personal statement. I can't say this enough times. The department member in the admissions department is going to be reading your personal statement in addition to dozens of others. So really making sure yours is memorable. You don't have to use the maximum amount of characters that I mentioned before. Just please make sure you don't go over it, because we won't see the rest of it. And you don't necessarily need to repeat information that's reported in other areas of your application. We'll get all of that. So don't waste any of those precious characters telling us about your GPA and about your MCAT and about all of your extracurriculars. You don't need to list all of those things. We'll see that elsewhere in your application. Talk about those aspects of that are either that had challenges or that have been critical to your journey. Highlight the most critical aspects of that. That's what you use those precious characters for. Convey interest, passion, specific characteristics, and qualities. You want to put yourself on paper. However you can, weave the story of who you are is what you need to be doing into your personal statement. Ask for help. There are lots of folks out there ready, willing, and able to help you with that. That can be your pre-medical advisor. It can be if you have a campus writing center, a college guidance counselor, a physician mentor, research advisor, a lab director, an English professor, family or friends. Have anyone who's willing to read it for you. You may consider professional services. Some students do that. I would counsel you very strongly to avoid using professional services for anything other than kind of helping you proofread it, kind of helping you, to double check your grammar and your structure, because we can kind of tell when a personal statement was professionally written. And that's really what you want to avoid. You really want it to shine as you, not as some professional letter writer. That's not who we're going for. But have anybody and everybody who's willing to proofread it for you, read it and give you their opinion. Especially the people that know you and love you best. They are great people to read it and give you an honest opinion about, what you wrote was really good, but I really think you're amazing at this other thing. How come you didn't highlight that? Because frequently our family and friends who love us shower praise on us sometimes a little bit more freely than we shower it on ourselves. And this is definitely the time to sort of think of those amazing things about yourself and be able to put them onto paper. Okay, so right now we're going to take about 10 minutes because we want to allow time to kind of have a little report out about this. I want you to take about 10 minutes from now until 1:40 to brainstorm right now with whatever you have available. Start putting down some of these ideas, because after 10 minutes, we're going to discuss this for a few minutes before we have our Q&A session. So if you haven't taken time yet to think through some of these things, jot down what's front of mind right now. Why medicine? Can you right now think of any personal anecdotes that you have that, this is meaningful to me. I don't want to forget this right now. A meaningful patient encounter, a challenge or obstacle that you've overcome that was substantial. Personal growth and reflection you've already had at this point in your career in terms of why you want to be a physician. Your journey, your life goals, all of that. Any positive stories that you can think of right now, anything memorable, that sort of thing. Let's take about 10 minutes and have you guys just kind of jot down some ideas, because I want you to leave with something. I want you to leave at least having started this process. And I want us to kind of talk through it a little bit and have people throw out some things that they thought of to write down and share. And then this can be the beginning of that journal that we talked about before. This can be the beginning of that place where you're going to have those reflections, those ideas, those things saved, where when you come back to your personal statement, you'll have this in one place. So let's again take until about 1:40, and then we're going to do a report out, and we're going to kind of hear from you guys kind of what you've come up with. Okay, so the next 10 minutes. All right, I'll mute.
For those of you that have just arrived, I see we had a few more people enter the session just now. I just want to let you know that you might not be able to see the history of the chat log. So what everyone is doing right now is taking some time to brainstorm their personal statements. If you just take a look at the slide and you can start writing, and then Dr. VanGarsse will return in a few more minutes.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Phillips. Yes. For those of you that are just logging on, thanks for catching that, Dr. Phillips. We've kind of gone through some brainstorming ideas. So you see the questions and the thoughts up there. So feel free for the next 5 minutes or so, brainstorm anything about you that's kind of in some of the categories that you see there on the slide. And we're going to talk about all of that here in about 5 minutes. Okay, let's take a couple more minutes because I'm going to definitely have a few minutes for some rich conversation about this before Q&A. So let's take a couple more minutes. Okay, so let's go ahead and reconvene and have some discussion about this before we go into Q&A. So who wants to share? Was this hard? Was this a hard exercise to like think of amazing things about yourself, or was it kind of tough to sit down and think of, yeah, why do I want to be a doctor? Did anyone find this challenging, or did you folks find it kind of easy? Anyone who feels comfortable sharing, that would be great.
I found it easier this time around just because I've talked to like a lot of medical students, and they've told me the same things like that you mentioned about like sit down and think about personal stories. And now that I'm a fourth year for sure, I've been thinking about this way more. So yeah, it was way easier this time.
Thanks for sharing. And I think, that definitely demonstrates the fact that it takes practice, right? I'm sure the first time that you sat down and did it, it felt incredibly awkward and weird. And I think it definitely is one of those things that takes practice. And I think it's great that you've started doing this. I would say further, it's great now that you've been doing this, and this is for everyone as well. I really like having it in one place. And then I would encourage you also to then keep it too. Keep it through medical school, because you're going to need to write another personal statement when you're applying for residency. And a lot of the fourth years that I work with right now, we're kind of struggling over the summer to kind of keep recreate some of these thoughts as they're preparing their residency personal statement. And I think if you kind of keep your thoughts from your med school personal statement and then add to that as you go, you definitely can then see your journey and how you've evolved, which makes your personal statements so very rich. So thank you for sharing. Would anyone else like to share?
For me, I do agree with practice, you become better at doing this, but initially it was a bit hard for me to do this because there are just so many things that I want to include in my personal statement. And it's just about kind of picking what I want to put in that statement and also crafting it into this story that really reflects the person that I am.
Right, absolutely. And my understanding is that the slides are going to go out to everyone afterwards. And I also included a PDF of that 3-part structure that I mentioned, with a little bit more questions and some spaces to write, to where people actually could print it out and actually have a place to start keeping their personal reflection notes if that's helpful. So that I sent out to the organizers of the conference as well, and that will be available with this session too. Does anyone feel comfortable sharing any of the things that they wrote about why they want to be a physician, or anything meaningful that they came up with, maybe that they hadn't necessarily recognized before was part of their journey toward medicine? If anyone's comfortable sharing, I'm sure we'd love to talk about that.
Yeah, definitely. Now thinking about it more, I was able to talk about like where I came from. I come from a community of farm workers, and before I was like, oh yeah, it's just a small town. But now that I look back, medicine, my parents didn't really trust medicine.
Mm-hmm.
Medicine. We had something called a soldador, which is like someone who massages.
Mm-hmm.
I talked about my personal experience when I dislocated my knee, and how we didn't see a doctor until maybe a month after, where it kept dislocating. And that had like lasting effects with me. And I talk about how, my goal as a physician is to help educate my people, minorities, people of color,
Mm-hmm.
and use that platform as a physician to reach out to people.
That's amazing. That super rich kind of personal experience is very impactful, and definitely kind of sets you apart as a prospective medical student. It's interesting. I was interviewing a prospective medical student for our class, for our second class, about 2 weeks ago, and he is from the Central Valley, and he had a similar story. He was from a migrant farm background, and he said the reason he's doing this is because it's shocking to his community that he's applying for medical school, and he personally wants it to be less shocking. And so he wants it to be more normal. And that was his why. So I think, and it was very impactful. It brought me to tears when I was interviewing him. So that sort of impact that reflects your personal journey is just tremendously important in conveying to the reader, and then again, even to the interviewer. I mean, that story will definitely continue and will be added to as your experience through applying to medical school grows, Anyone else?
Yeah, I actually found this quite easy for me, but mostly because my reason for why I want to do this was recently reignited. So I actually fell off the track and I had decided I was going to pursue something else. And during this pandemic, while I live in Southern California, my parents live in the Central Valley, and my dad caught COVID-19 and he ended up having to be hospitalized. All of the communication was over the phone. And I commend the staff for doing their absolute best to try to communicate. However, the Spanish they attempted to use was kind of broken, so a lot of the nuance was just not communicated correctly. So what ended up happening is there was a lot of miscommunication, both between the doctor and my mother, who was very scared because she wasn't really understanding what was going on.
Sure.
So from a distance, I kind of was brought back to my childhood of being a medical interpreter between the medical staff and my parents. And I remember I felt almost frustrated, like, oh, why is this a thing? Like, why can't something be done? And then I thought about it and I'm like, well, you're someone who could do something.
Right.
So that kind of started me all over into searching, okay, how do I start again? And how do I continue? Because I can't be upset about something when I have the power to do something about it.
Yes. And that's, again, that's that super impactful, super meaningful why. And that is going to very much speak to medical schools like ours and like others, where we are looking for those doers. We are looking for those people who have a super passionate why, because that's what's going to get them through the tough times, as I mentioned before. So we're looking for students exactly like that. Other medical schools are looking for students exactly like that. So yes, all of that. So with our 15 minutes remaining, I want to sort of have this be whatever folks want it to be. If people want to ask questions about the general, about asking questions, if people want to continue to discuss this topic, we can kind of definitely make it be a fusion of both, if that's okay with Dr. Phillips. However you guys want to do it. If you want to ask me general questions, if you want to continue to talk about this topic, we can definitely do both.
Yeah, why don't we open it up for questions? I think that this would be a good time.
Excellent. What
So
kind of questions do
if you have questions, you can unmute yourself and just chime in, or you can type in the chat log and we'll read them for you.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, my name is Jessica, but I go by Jess. I'm from the Central Valley, so I live in Woodlake, California. I just graduated, well, not graduated, but I completed my postbac at Cal State East Bay. So my question is, it's not relevant to, I guess it is relevant to the personal statement, but as an associate dean for the Osteopathic Medical School in Clovis, what is it that what makes a competitive prospective applicant for your school?
That's an excellent question. Thank you for asking that. We really want to see, two things. We want to see grit and determination, and we really do want to see a passion in our prospective students for the Central Valley. Our medical school was founded to help solve the workforce issues and the problems with access to care in the Central Valley that's due to the physician shortage. So our school was actually founded to help address that. And so therefore, we definitely want to see students that have a passion for the underserved, that have a passion for the Central Valley, and or some strong connection to the Central Valley, but who've had where it's a genuine passion, a genuine connection. That's definitely what we're looking for. Our first class that started in August is about 36% from have some students from outside of California, because we are looking for diversity of thought as well. But we're looking for a very service-minded and gritty group of individuals. And I feel like we definitely achieved that with our first class, for sure. Great question.
Thank you.
Let's see, the topic of the worst personal statement you have ever read. I can't think of the worst personal statement I ever read for medical school, but for residency, and they're very similar, was a student that was kind of equating their specialty of choice to their love for travel. And it was just, it could have been very impactful, but it was a very loose connection that I really didn't quite understand what they were going for with it. And it really didn't like move me. I was like, well, then why do you want to be a doctor? Why don't you just travel? It was weird. Let's see. What are your thoughts on discussing mental health issues in a personal statement? So I think we certainly read a lot of that in personal statements this year, where students would very much talk through challenges they had and how they had navigated it and how they had been successful. I certainly wouldn't disclose more than you are comfortable with. And certainly I probably wouldn't put necessarily anything in your personal statement where you weren't demonstrating that things are improving, that you have gotten appropriate help and that you are helping yourself and that you are demonstrating grit. Like I probably wouldn't disclose things that weren't on an upward trajectory, but that journey on how you got things on an upward trajectory, I think is very impactful and very meaningful. I would say that with any health issues that you want to talk about in your personal statement. Is there something in personal statements that osteopathic schools look for that allopathic schools don't necessarily focus on? Yeah, actually there is. We definitely want to see that students that apply to osteopathic medical schools have a sense of what osteopathic medicine is. We kind of don't necessarily want, because there are some subtle differences and some nuances, and we definitely want to see that students are kind of aware of that and have kind of thought through that and aren't really just applying to osteopathic medical school as kind of a backup plan. That's definitely what we're looking for. I don't have any ties to the Central Valley. How would you recommend approaching that aspect of the application? Talk about I'm sure you probably have some service experiences and some undergraduate service experiences and volunteer work that you have done. And so definitely highlight, if you have a passion for the underserved, speak to that, do a little bit of research on the Central Valley, read about where we do have problems with underserved areas, look into our specific poor health outcomes that are a result of that. Look at our asthma outcomes, look at some of our unique things to the Central Valley, and then speak to how your background in volunteer work and service work in X leads you to have a passion for the underserved that we have in the Central Valley. So that's a clear connection where you don't have to actually have a physical connection to the Central Valley. If you have a passion for the similar work that we're wanting to achieve, that's how you kind of address that. Let's see here. I think I missed a few.
There's a question about if medical schools look at undergraduate schools differently. For example, CSU versus AAUC.
So certainly there is some of that. It kind of depends on what medical school you're talking to. I think some of the more elite medical schools may do that. I can speak specifically to ours, and we do not. We welcome students with CSU background, with UC background, with even some prereqs from a junior college. We're definitely okay with that, because then we're looking for the growth, we're looking for the grit, we're looking for the determination. We have some students from Fresno State in our medical school right now that are leading the class. So we don't look down upon any of the CSUs. And I would say the California medical schools probably by and large are really looking for students that want to stay in California, and probably there's less bias against the CSUs here as a whole, I would say.
We've got 3 minutes. Yep. So let's see here. We've got, does the admissions panel look at experiences that are volunteer or paid positions differently?
No, we really don't. We certainly like to see both, but what we really want to see through either volunteer or paid positions is that you know what medicine is about. You know what you're getting into with being a doctor. You know that it's not all like Grey's Anatomy, that you know that there's highs and there's lows. And so we have a lot of our students this year who were scribes in the ER. We look upon that great. I certainly would have a little bit of service because it definitely demonstrates that wanting to give back. But we're fine with paid positions that are in the medical field.
Okay, how would you address previous academic challenges in a personal statement without making it the central premise of the paper?
I would, if you're talking about your growth journey to medicine, I would definitely highlight, I faced some academic challenges, but because I'm so dedicated to being a physician because of reason why, I found a way to work through that, and I challenged myself, and I really wanted to overcome that challenge that I faced. You don't have to get specific about it, but talk us through the process of how you overcame it and why your passion for medicine is what helped you to overcome it, if that makes sense. Majority of DO physicians I encountered are primary care physicians. Are DOs limited? So really quickly before you guys transition out, no. In general, you're correct. In general, about 60% of osteopathic medical school graduates go into primary care. It's not because they're limited to do that. DOs are allowed to go into any specialty of medicine that exists. You tend to find that the people that gravitate towards osteopathic medicine are the type of people that then gravitate towards primary care. That they have an interest in the care of the whole person through kind of that lifespan. And so it just tends to be the type of person that's attracted to primary care is attracted to osteopathic medicine. But there is no limitation. Okay. I
think it would be great. I saw on your slides you had shared your email address.
Yeah, let me reshare that really quick.
Okay. If you have any other questions for Dr. VanGarsse, then I'd encourage you to send her an email.
Let's see if I can. It's not wanting to go. Why it's not advancing. There we go. So medschool@chsu.edu is our general admissions email, and they will forward me any questions that you guys send to them if you want them specifically for me. But our admissions team is who staffs that email, and they can also answer a ton of our specific admissions questions because that's our admissions department right there. So, but they can forward it to me if it's not just about our school. Okay. All right. Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. I hope this was fun. I had a great time.
Thank you so much, Dr. VanGarsse. This was really great information. I'm going to stop recording.